first, let us update everyone on the big story of the day. Ben Simmons. The Sixers announced that he suffered a partial dislocation of his kneecap yesterday. He is out for the time being. Treatment options are being considered. Brett Brown said today that the Sixers will have a better sense of what timeline they might be following for Simmons over the next 24 hours. So, Brian, what's your reaction to this news?
Well, I got to say...
Brian, go ahead.
Well, I got to say, this is just what a cursed season this has been for the Sixers. Just since October, it seems like they just can't get going, and this is such a setback. Brett Brown just talked about this a little while ago and was just really upset by it. Now, this injury, it's not the worst injury you can have. It's not good. There have been guys who have missed 10 days with this injury. There have been guys who have missed 2 months with this injury. So it doesn't necessarily mean that he's out for a long period of time, but at this point, any setback is tough, especially to an all-star player.
Yeah, the injury, I read what my buddy Jeff Stotts, who's one of the foremost injury experts in Street Clothes on Twitter, and he talked about the subluxation, and basically the difference between that and a kneecap dislocation is the structural damage that happens around it. If it reverts back and there's not a lot of structural damage, it can be mild, like Brian said. Alan Crabb this year missed 11 days with the same type of injury. If there's more structural damage, though, then you might miss a lot of time. In the case of Andrew Bynum, about 12 years ago, he was supposed to miss 8 weeks, ended up missing the entire rest of the season when he got hurt in January. So it really depends on the extent of the damage around the patella. But here's the deal, Rachel. They've got to find a way to continue to be productive without him, right? You can't hang your head. He's not going to be available. So now it's a next man up mentality. And luckily for them, I think there might be some opportunities there.
Well, look, the constant discussion is how do Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons play together, right? Well, sometimes they are forced into a situation where that's no longer an issue. That has happened right now, and Joel Embiid dropped 30 points last night, leading the Sixers to a win even after Simmons left the game in the third quarter. Embiid averaging 33 points per game in the bubble, third highest of any player since the restart. So without Simmons, normally on any team, if you said you're going to lose one of your top 2 All-Stars, it's a huge blow. But with this unique situation with the Sixers, what does Simmons' injury mean for Joel Embiid?
Here's the weird thing about the Sixers. Obviously, Simmons is a big part. He's one of their best defensive players in the league. He's their primary playmaker, one of the best playmakers in the league. But what you're referring to, Rachel, is floor balance and a more balanced lineup and more shooting out there. And in some ways, that can be a more cohesive unit around Joel Embiid. You can use him as a facilitator more. I think he's an excellent passer who needs to get more touches at the elbow to make plays for other people. And so now, because Simmons isn't on the floor, there's a world of opportunities that normally aren't available when the 2 of those guys are together.
Yeah, the other thing is they have a really quality player to step in there. Al Horford most likely going back in to power forward. And while Al Horford has been up and down this year, in the bubble, when Al Horford has played with Joel Embiid, the Sixers have seen good things. The other thing is their first-round possible opponent is the Celtics. The Celtics have difficulty defending big men. It is the weakness of their roster. We have seen it in this bubble. And Joel Embiid is going to get the ball a lot. So if you're going to switch to an offense to prepare for the Celtics, you might as well spend the next 7 to 10 days feeding Joel Embiid the ball. And Joel wants that ball. He has made it clear he thinks the offense should run fully through him anyway. Well, now he's going to get his opportunity. And who knows, this may be actually something that sets them up for their series with the Celtics until Ben Simmons maybe can return from this injury.
And I want to be clear, the Sixers are not a better team without Ben Simmons. He is an important, integral part of their operation. But it is a weird situation with their 2 superstars sometimes thriving without each other, and that is what Joel Embiid will have a chance to do. All right, I want to move on to Zion Williamson. He's been in the spotlight for how the Pelicans have been managing his minutes in the bubble. They are playing right now, and guys, he has 20 points in 16 minutes. He's averaging 18 minutes over the Pelicans' first 3 games, playing in as many as 25 minutes in the last game. So they're in action against the Kings. I'm going to get you some highlights here. Take a look. Zion getting the start and his first bucket with the drive.
Go ahead, big fella. No one wants to get in a charge there. No one wants to take that charge.
Bogdanovic hitting one of his many threes so far in the game. And then Zion with the dime to Derek Favors. Second quarter, we had De'Aaron Fox with the alley-oop to Daquan Jeffries.
Hit the Quan. No? Okay.
The Euro, the dish, and then who else? Zion with the drive. All right, so Brian, how many minutes do you think Zion should play in this game? You've been talking for the last few days that the Pelicans do have a plan. So they went 15 minutes, 15 minutes. They were going to go more, but it was a blowout, and then 25 minutes. We're at this now fourth game. How many minutes do you expect?
Yeah, it looks like Alvin Gentry has set this up to be a 25-minute game for Zion. He played him 10 minutes in the first half. And the idea would be that they would save him for the last 5 minutes of the game. Hopefully that it's that close. Now, this game has been a disaster for the Pelicans defensively. They give up 50 points in the first quarter, and they give up 80 in the first half, and they give up 60%. They shot 60% as a team, and we're losing at halftime. So whoever is out on the floor has got to defend for them to have a chance there. But it looks like they don't want to lose any more games with Zion sitting on the bench, so they are going to set this up, and it looks like Zion will be in position to be able to finish this game.
Yeah, we're doing a live look in now, and by the way, Zion is a perfect 8 for 8 from the floor. So as we're watching the game, I mean, why don't you chime in?
Yeah, you know, the tough thing is there's two conversations about Zion. Conversation number one is managing his health. When we talk about how many minutes should he play, that's not up to us. That's not really even up to Alvin. That's up to the medical staff. They've got a specific program to make sure he ramps up at a gradual pace. Because remember, he sat out a good 12 to 13 days without working out at all. And what we know, Rachel, is when you get fatigued, which happens when you're out of shape, you are more susceptible to injury. We heard David Griffin tell that to Lisa Salters the other day on the broadcast. And moreover, we've seen two examples, Jaren Jackson Jr. and Jonathan Isaac, guys who were coming off an injury before the shutdown, came out here, played well, and then re-injured the same body part. That's not a coincidence. And so the way the Pelicans have been managing his minutes, I think is appropriate towards their medical guidelines are. The other part of it is he doesn't always play well on the defensive end. At least he has in the last 3 games.
That's fair.
So while
Let me say something about the Kings here. This is an absolute must-win game for the Kings if they have any dream at all of getting into the 9th seed and getting into a playoff tournament, and they have played that way. De'Aaron Fox has played great in this game. Bogdanovic, who had one of the most miserable shooting games you're ever going to see in his last game, came out and hit his first 6 shots. This has been a highly competitive game. This is essentially an elimination game. Whoever loses this game is going to be in big trouble.
Spoiler alert, the Kings already eliminated. There's no chance. They've got no chance.
I mean, it's funny that you kept mentioning the medical staff, and you're saying it's not really up to Alvin Gentry, which I can definitely tell you after conversations with Alvin Gentry, it has not been up to Alvin Gentry. But it's not supposed to be, right? That this is why they have the medical staff they have. You worked with this medical staff. They were your medical staff when you were in Phoenix. Can you give some insight into why David Griffin trusts them so much and is basically giving them the final decision-making as opposed to the coach or even Zion himself?
Well, I think the first things first is that when you give it to the medical staff, there's no pressure. We got to win this game. We got to do whatever it takes to get a guy out there. Those guys are beholden to the science before any other kind of quote-unquote political reasons why a guy should play more or less. But then the other part of this is, Rachel, they take a look at you and they do all these full-body measurements, and they can tell when you are firing your muscles in the right way or whether you're compensating, right? So back in December, when he was quote-unquote healthy but not playing, they said we got to reteach him how to run. Why is that? Because the way he was running and jumping was making him more susceptible to injury. So they want to fix the biomechanics before they just trot you out there to play 35 minutes.
Makes sense. All right, guys, coming up, we're going to check in more on this game. We'll bring you more live looks. Coming up, though, Kevin Durant picked the Clippers to win the finals this year. Really interesting stuff. We're going to break down his prediction next. First, though, here is LeBron James. This was last night. He reacted to comments from President Trump. President Trump said that players kneeling for the anthem causes him to turn off the game and was, quote, disgraceful. Take a listen to LeBron's response.
Are sad about losing his viewership. And I hope everyone, no matter the race, no matter the color, no matter the size, would see what leadership that we have at the top in our country, and understand that November is right around the corner, and it's a big moment for us as Americans. If we continue to talk about we want, better, won't change. We have an opportunity to do that. So, but the game will